The nervous system is the master control panel of your entire experience of reality. It governs how you perceive the world, how you respond to it, and most importantly, how you interpret internal signals like fear, motivation, intuition, or desire. When we talk about manifestation, bringing an internal vision into external form, it all begins with the state of your nervous system. Why? Because if your nervous system is dysregulated, constantly in a state of hyperarousal or shutdown, your brain literally loses access to the very tools you need to manifest anything: focus, creativity, foresight, and executive control. When you're in a chronically stressed state, driven by the sympathetic nervous system, what's commonly called fight or flight mode, you aren't just emotionally overwhelmed. You're neurologically impaired. Blood flow shifts away from your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, goal setting, and imagination. Instead, activity ramps up in your amygdala, the brain's fear and threat detection center. This makes you more reactive, more impulsive, and ironically, less capable of solving problems or building toward your vision. It becomes nearly impossible to imagine a positive future when your brain is wired to only scan for threats. In contrast, when you downshift into a more relaxed state, governed by the parasympathetic nervous system, often referred as the rest and digest system, something profound happens. Your brain regains access to high-level cognitive functions. You become capable of abstract thought, long-term planning, and emotional regulation. This is the optimal state for visualization, intention setting, and taking aligned action. Relaxation, then, is not passive. It is a powerful lever for accessing the neural networks that allow manifestation to even be possible. This is why one of the most high-leverage things you can do every day is begin by calming your system. Before opening your phone, before checking your calendar, before reacting to the world. A simple practice like 3 to 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing can shift your entire physiology. The practice itself is straightforward. Inhale slowly through your nose, filling your lungs from the bottom up so your belly expands, then exhale longer than your inhale. Even more effective is the physiological sigh, which is 2 quick inhales through the nose followed by a slow exhale through the mouth. This triggers a rapid activation of the parasympathetic system and reduces carbon dioxide levels in the bloodstream, which has a calming effect on both body and mind. This is not just wellness advice, it's biology. These brief moments of regulation prime your brain for focus and clarity. They rewire the default mode network, the part of the brain associated with self-referential thinking imagination. When this system is online and your stress systems are offline, you're in the perfect state to tune to what truly want and create strategies to pursue it. But it's not a one-time thing. Just like you wouldn't expect to get physically strong from one workout, you can't expect your nervous system to recalibrate from one session of breathing. What matters is consistency. Daily engagement with these tools trains your autonomic nervous system to remain more flexible, able to activate when necessary, but return to calm when the threat is gone. This flexibility is known as vagal tone, and high vagal tone is associated with greater emotional resilience, clearer thinking, and a stronger immune system. So before you try to manifest the next big thing, whether it's a relationship, a project, or a purpose-driven life, ask yourself, what state am I in? Because if the state is fear, rush, or reactivity, the signal you're sending into the world is incoherent. But if the state is calm, grounded, and open, that's when the nervous system becomes your ally and manifestation moves from wishful thinking to biological inevitability. Your nervous system is not just responding to your life, it's creating it. Relaxation is often misunderstood. People tend to think of it as a personality trait, something you're either naturally good at or not. You hear phrases like, "she's just a calm person," or "I've always been high-strung." But that's a misconception. Relaxation is not a fixed trait. It is a trainable skill. Like strength, focus, or memory, it improves with deliberate practice. And once you realize that, it changes everything. You stop blaming your circumstances or your personality, and you begin taking responsibility for training your internal state, the ability to relax on demand is not about escaping reality or numbing out. It's about developing the capacity to shift your internal physiology in real time. When you learn how to downshift your arousal levels intentionally, you gain access to the parts of your brain and body that are designed for high-level thinking, connection, and creativity. You are no longer being run by unconscious stress loops. Instead, you're directing your system with awareness and precision. This matters more than most people realize. When you're in a dysregulated state, overstimulated, anxious, or hypervigilant, your sensory systems go into overdrive. The brain becomes biased toward threat detection, and you interpret neutral signals as dangerous. Over time, this state becomes your default. You get used to living with a clenched jaw, shallow breathing, tight shoulders, and racing thoughts. You adapt to the noise, but you lose your capacity to truly hear inner voice. The good news is that the nervous system is incredibly plastic. That means it can change, and more importantly, it wants to. Your brain and body are constantly trying to return to balance, what we call homeostasis. But you have to help it. The skill of relaxation begins with awareness, becoming conscious of your internal state before it hijacks your behavior. Are you breathing fast? Are your muscles tense? Is your attention scattered? These are signs of sympathetic overactivation, and they signal a need to intervene. One of the most effective tools for this is visual anchoring. It's incredibly simple, but neurologically powerful. When you fix your gaze on a single point in your environment, without darting your eyes around, you send a direct signal to your brainstem to reduce alertness. Why? Because darting eyes are a sign of threat scanning. By anchoring your gaze and softening your peripheral vision, you create a neurobiological message of safety. Within seconds, your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, and your mind begins to settle. This isn't about willpower. It's about leveraging biology. You can also use techniques like body scanning, bringing deliberate attention to different parts of the body, noticing where you're holding tension and releasing it one area at a time, or progressive muscle relaxation, where you systematically tense and then release muscle groups to create contrast and awareness. These aren't spiritual hacks. They're tools grounded in neuroscience designed to retrain the way your body holds and processes stress. Another layer to this is rhythm. The body responds to rhythm naturally, whether it's through breath, movement, or even sound. Rhythmic helps regulate the nervous system. Practices like walking in nature, listening to calming music, or engaging in rhythmic breathing patterns have all been shown to improve vagal tone and reduce baseline anxiety. With enough repetition, your baseline state begins to shift. You become someone who doesn't just know how to relax. You live in a more relaxed state by default. The key here is consistency. Just as you wouldn't expect physical fitness from a single workout, you can't expect nervous system resilience from occasional relaxation. It must be part of your daily rhythm. The compound effect of these small moments of downregulation, morning breath work, midday visual anchoring, evening body scanning, builds a system that is responsive instead of reactive, centered instead of chaotic. So remember, relaxation is not luck. It's not a personality, it's a practice. And the more you train it, the more control you gain over your mind, your energy, and your outcomes. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to train your system to respond differently. And that's entirely within your power. When people talk about manifestation, they often imagine it as simply thinking positively or visualizing a goal until it magically arrives. But the real mechanism behind manifestation isn't magic. It's neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience, repetition, and emotional intensity. If you want to manifest something in your life, you're not just hoping. It happens. You're actually reshaping your brain to believe that it's possible, relevant, worth pursuing. And that reshaping only happens in certain brain states, specifically those marked by relaxation, focus, and emotional engagement. If you try to visualize your ideal future while you're stressed or distracted, your brain will reject the image. It treats it as irrelevant or even threatening. Why? Because the brain prioritizes survival. When you're anxious or overwhelmed, your system interprets even the most inspiring goal as a risk, not a reward. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real external threat and an imagined one. It only knows whether you feel safe or not. So if you're trying to overlay a vision of success on top of a nervous system flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, you're sending conflicting messages. One part of your brain says, yes, but the rest is screaming. That inner conflict stalls the manifestation process before it even begins. To effectively imprint a new belief or goal into your nervous system, your body and mind need to be in a state that is open to learning. This is where the parasympathetic nervous system plays a crucial role. When your body is relaxed, your brain becomes more plastic, more capable of forming new synaptic connections. This is the ideal state for visualization, affirmations, or internal rehearsal. In this relaxed state, the vision you hold doesn't get rejected. It gets absorbed. It's important to pair visualization with a physiological state that supports it. One of the most effective times to do this is right after practices that calm the nervous system, such as breathwork, yoga nidra, or non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. After these practices, the brain enters a hypnagogic state, a bridge between wakefulness and sleep, where imagination and memory systems are highly active. In this state, the brain is more receptive to suggestion and more likely to encode new mental patterns. This is why elite performers and military personnel use visualization immediately after calming protocols. They know the mind is more malleable in these windows. But visualization on its own isn't enough. The brain needs emotional salience to know what matters. This is where emotion becomes a critical amplifier. When you visualize a goal, you must also generate a corresponding emotion, like joy, gratitude, or pride, as if the goal is already achieved. That emotional signature creates a biochemical tag in the brain, signaling that this experience is meaningful. The combination of imagery and emotion triggers the release of neuromodulators like dopamine, which help reinforce the neural circuits associated with that vision. This is also why repetition matters. You can't visualize something once and expect transformation. The neural circuits related to your goals need repeated activation, especially in states of relaxation and heightened emotion. This is how new mental maps are laid down. Just like learning a skill, manifestation requires consistent reinforcement. The more often you practice, the stronger the network becomes, and the more your behavior, attention, and energy align with that internal blueprint. Another way to deepen this process is through embodiment. That means not only thinking about your desired outcome, but acting, speaking, and carrying yourself as if it's already becoming real. The brain is always listening to your body. When you move through the world with the posture and presence of someone who believes in their future, your nervous system begins to adopt that belief as normal, not foreign. This further solidifies the internal change you're creating. So manifestation isn't just about wishful thinking. It's about aligning biology with intention. You train your brain to believe in the vision, condition your body to feel it, and repeat the process in the right states, again and again, until it becomes reality. Desire is often misunderstood as an emotion or fleeting feeling, but in truth, it's a biochemical signal, one largely driven by the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine is not about pleasure about pursuit. It's the molecule that propels you forward, keeps you engaged, and helps you anticipate rewards. Whenever you're excited about a goal, imagining a better version of your life or setting out to achieve something meaningful, that's dopamine at work. But here's the crucial: desire needs a stable, regulated nervous system to be productive. Without that foundation, desire turns into chaos, restlessness, or compulsive behavior that drains your energy instead of focusing it. Dopamine thrives on structure and balance. In a healthy system, it's released in anticipation of a reward and motivates you to act. but in a dysregulated nervous system. When you're constantly stressed, overstimulated, or burnt out, dopamine pathways become erratic. You end up chasing quick hits of stimulation, scrolling endlessly, or jumping from one goal to the next without making real progress. You feel driven but unfocused, motivated but exhausted to the signals you give it. This is because your nervous system doesn't have the capacity to contain and channel your desire. It's like pouring high-voltage electricity into faulty wiring. Everything short circuits. To manifest anything sustainably, you have to work with your dopamine system, not against it. That begins by stabilizing your internal state. When your nervous system is calm and coherent, dopamine becomes precise. It points you toward meaningful outcomes rather than random stimulation. You can feel desire rising in you. And instead of it scattering your focus, it sharpens it. You move with intention, not urgency. This is why relaxation practices aren't just about feeling good. They're about creating the conditions under which desire can translate into focused action. One of the most powerful ways to support this balance is through honoring your body's natural rhythms, specifically your ultradian rhythms. These are cycles of high and low alertness that occur roughly every 90 to 120 minutes. During the peaks, your brain is primed for deep work, problem solving, and focus. But after each cycle, there is a natural dip where your system needs rest, even briefly, to reset. Most people override these dips with caffeine or stimulation, pushing through with willpower. But doing so taxes the dopamine system and leads to burnout over time. The better approach is to align your workflow with these rhythms. Work deeply for 90 minutes, then take a deliberate 10 to 15-minute break. During the break, step away from screens, walk, breathe, look at nature or out a window. These small actions help restore dopamine receptors, lower cortisol levels, and reset your attentional system. It's during these moments of rest that your brain consolidates information and recharges motivation. This isn't indulgence. It's smart neurobiological strategy. Incorporating movement is another critical piece. Physical activity, especially rhythmic forms like walking, running, or cycling, naturally balances dopamine. It promotes the release of endorphins and strengthens your capacity for sustained effort. You don't need to do intense workouts every day. Even 20 to 30 minutes of movement can help stabilize your energy, regulate your mood, and prevent dopamine depletion. Sleep, too, plays a major role. Most of the dopamine reset and receptor sensitivity restoration happens during deep sleep. If you're not sleeping well, no amount of willpower or motivation hacks will compensate. Your desire will feel dull or worse, overwhelming and aimless. Prioritizing sleep hygiene, dark, cool room, consistent schedule, screen-free time before bed is one of the most overlooked aspects of maintaining a high-functioning motivational system. Ultimately, desire is not enough. To manifest what you truly want, you need the physiological structure to hold and direct that energy. That means cultivating a stable nervous system, honoring your biological rhythms, and treating your body as the vessel through which your goals are expressed. When your system is balanced, desire becomes a compass, not a curse. It leads you forward with clarity and strength, and manifestation stops being an idea. It becomes a process grounded in biology. Action is the bridge between intention and reality. It's the mechanism through which desire materializes into form. You can visualize the life you want, align your nervous system, and regulate your emotions. But unless that internal alignment results in deliberate, consistent action, nothing changes in the external world. Manifestation is not about waiting for the universe to deliver something. It's about creating the conditions for your nervous system to support forward movement, then taking action from that grounded, regulated place. The challenge most people face isn't a lack of goals or vision. It's that their nervous system is caught in a loop of hesitation, overthinking, or paralysis. This is where the role of micro actions becomes powerful. When you take small, specific, and consistent steps toward your goal, you're signaling to your brain that the path forward is safe and achievable. These micro actions create a feedback loop. Each step you take releases a small amount of dopamine, reinforcing motivation and giving your brain evidence that progress is happening. Over time, these small wins add up, shifting your identity from someone who dreams to someone who executes. But action has to be embodied. It must be felt, not just planned. Many people get stuck in mental rehearsal. They read, study, journal, visualize, but they never move into the world with what they've internalized. This is usually a symptom of fear masked as perfectionism. They wait for the perfect moment, perfect conditions, or perfect clarity. But the nervous system doesn't respond to ideas. It responds to behavior. What you do consistently shapes how you feel, how you think, and what your brain comes to expect. This is where nervous system regulation and behavioral science converge. When your system is calm, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and regulating behavior, is fully online. You're able to prioritize, evaluate, and initiate action without getting hijacked by fear. But when you're dysregulated, even the smallest step can feel overwhelming. You procrastinate, avoid, or self-sabotage, not because you're lazy, but because your system is trying to protect you from perceived threat or failure. This is why grounding your body through breath, movement, or visual focus is essential before taking action. Another key principle is behavioral momentum. This comes from the field of applied behavior analysis and refers to the idea that once you're in motion, no matter how small the task, you're more likely to stay in motion. For example, if your goal is to write a book, starting with just 5 minutes a day can create momentum. Once you're in the process, your nervous system begins to shift from resistance to engagement. This shift is chemical dopamine starts to rise and neural circuits for motivation and focus activate. The key is to begin, not with the hardest task, but with the most accessible one. What's equally important is how you interpret progress. People often wait for massive external results before they give themselves permission to feel successful. But this delays gratification and weakens the internal reward system. Instead, it's essential to reinforce effort, celebrate the process. Every time you show up, follow through, or lean into discomfort. This reinforcement strengthens the neural pathways related to consistency and builds the identity of someone who takes action even when it's hard. Accountability also plays a role when you communicate your goals, either by writing them down, speaking them aloud, you give it, or sharing them with a trusted person, you increase your likelihood of following through. The act of externalizing your intention creates a social and psychological contract that activates deeper layers of motivation. This is not about pressure, it's about support. The brain thrives in systems of trust, collaboration, and shared intention. Ultimately, action is not something separate from manifestation. It is the core of it. But it must be action taken from a grounded, regulated, and intentional place. Otherwise, you end up spinning in stress-based activity that leads to burnout rather than results. Train your body to feel safe in motion. Build momentum through consistent effort. Reinforce every step. In doing so, you don't just chase the life you want. You become the version of yourself who naturally creates it. Sustained manifestation requires coherence between your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, and your physiology. When these systems are aligned, you move through life with clarity and momentum. But when they're fragmented, your energy is dispersed and progress becomes inconsistent. Integration means bringing your mind and body into agreement so that you're not just thinking about your goals, but feeling and behaving in alignment with them on a daily basis. This internal coherence creates a powerful signal that the brain and nervous system can organize around. It's the difference between static and a clear frequency, between being scattered and being in flow. At the physiological level, coherence is reflected in your heart rate variability, MHRV, brainwave patterns, and hormonal rhythms. When you're in a coherent state, your breath, heart, and brain communicate in harmony. This isn't abstract, it's measurable. High HRV, for instance, is associated with emotional regulation, resilience, and cognitive performance. When your system is coherent, it sends a message to the rest of your body: we're safe, we're focused, we can pursue. This creates the optimal state for sustained creativity, problem solving, and motivation, all of which are required for long-term manifestation. One of the most effective ways to cultivate coherence is through rhythmic breathing. When you inhale and exhale slowly and evenly, especially through the nose, you directly influence the vagus nerve, which governs your parasympathetic nervous system. This lowers heart rate, reduces inflammation, and increases the sense of calm and control. Just 5 minutes of coherent breathing a few times a day can create lasting shifts in your baseline state. When practiced regularly, it becomes easier to access flow states and maintain focus on what truly matters. But coherence is not just about physiology. It also means emotional congruence. That is, your emotions must align with your vision. If you're trying to manifest abundance while constantly feeling scarcity or seeking love while emotionally guarded, there's a mismatch in signal. The nervous system picks up on this dissonance. It senses that what you're saying you want isn't matching how you feel. And as a result, it doesn't mobilize the internal resources needed to move toward the goal. This is why embodiment practices are so critical. They allow you to rehearse and reinforce emotional states that match your vision. Through movement, breath, and somatic awareness, you can condition your body to feel what it's like to already be the person who has created the life you desire. When that emotional experience becomes familiar to your system, your brain begins to recognize it as safe and attainable. You're no longer imagining a future that feels far away. You're rehearsing one that's becoming biologically real. Language also plays a role in creating coherence. The way you speak to yourself and others either reinforces alignment or fractures it. Language that is vague, self-deprecating, or contradictory weakens coherence. On the other hand, affirming and precise language strengthens neural pathways tied to your goals. Saying, I am becoming more focused every day communicates progress and possibility. Saying, I'm always distracted, signals defeat. The nervous system listens to the words you use. It treats them like commands. Sleep, nutrition, and light exposure are additional anchors of coherence. These daily rhythms influence your hormonal balance, circadian alignment, and cognitive capacity. When your body is fed, rested, and in sync with natural light cycles, your mood stabilizes and your energy becomes more predictable. You're not riding waves of fatigue and stimulation. You're grounded, clear, and capable of consistent follow-through. True manifestation is not about singular events. It's about sustained alignment over time. Coherence gives you the foundation to maintain that alignment. When your nervous system is synchronized, your emotions are congruent, your actions are consistent, and your vision is clear. You create a force that is not only powerful, but inevitable. You don't have to force things to happen. You simply become the kind of person for whom those things happen naturally. That's the essence of relaxed manifestation, ground embodied and biologically supported